Hello, all you wonderful Rise of Kingdoms players out there. This is Dragothien here. And first off, I wanted to thank everybody for all the well wishes. Having surgery yesterday, I am back a little sooner than I thought I would be. I am in a little bit of pain, but the pain is much more manageable than I was before the surgery. So I'm going to tough it out and do a video with you guys because it's something I wanted to talk about with everybody in the community. And that's going to be about the resource changes. I did a video a couple days ago about the overall patch, which included the resource cap, which is now, according to social media and this particular message, been pulled back. So thankfully, this part has been removed from the patch notes. I think the overwhelming sentiment for the most part was that we understand what you're trying to do, but this isn't the way to do it. And I think they understood that. They saw the feedback that people were getting, very reasonable responses. Some of them weren't so reasonable, but you have to kind of parse through that stuff. But I think that we need to have a discussion about resources in Rise of Kingdoms, and that's what this video is going to be about, because there's core problems. There's core problems with the resources in Rise of Kingdoms, how you attain them, how you can get what you need to do what you need to do in the game. So first off, I wanted to kind of discuss really what the update was here. This was updated in the game 2 hours ago, but on social media it was a little bit earlier. Basically, they've peeled back the 200 million cap on resource assistance and the 200 million cap on plundering, which again was huge news, because you just don't, that wasn't fixing anything. However, they did decide to leave in the 25% increase to deposits for all resources except for gems and alliance resource centers, and increasing the 10% gathering speed as well. That's going to stay. And I think that if you look at what's been happening over the last couple conversations from the Rise of Kingdoms development team about resources, it's clear as day that they want to get rid of the third-party vendors. It's against terms of service, it's against the rules, all that good stuff. And I think they're trying to do it in a way that is least impactful, but this was not the way at all to do that. And I think they realized that. I want this video to kind of be a discussion about that. Throw your comments in the comment section below after you've watched the video. Make sure you stay to the end, because we're going to be talking about the core fundamental problems of how you attain resources in Rise of Kingdoms. And, as somebody who's played this game for basically 3 years now at this point, I mean, it's almost a travesty, some of the things when I give some perspective on what we're about to talk about in Rise of Kingdoms, how you attain these resources. It's pretty crazy. So let's talk about the ways that you can actually get resources for your account, for your main account, without farms, without any additional help from alliance mates, etc. And there's not really that many that you can really talk about. You obviously have what I'm collecting right here, which is your resource production nodes, which give you 4 of each type of resource, and they're capped out. I believe this is like a 500,000 with full tech, like 530,400 for max food capacity, and then your food production per hour is 53,040, which ends up totaling up to a good amount of resources. If you're max capped out, it's like 530 and some change for food and wood. For stone, it's in the 300 range, and for the gold nodes, each one is like 190 or something in that neighborhood. So you can only get a certain amount. It's 26,500 times 10. That's 260,500. Okay, so maybe the gold is 300, but you get my drift. It's not a whole lot in a 24-hour period that you get. It's maybe 2 million food and wood, 1.5 million stone, and maybe 1 million gold is what you get every 24 hours. And again, that's if you're talking from a fighting perspective, which is what I really want to discuss here. That's nothing. It's basically nothing. That's barely healing a few T4 troops, let alone T5 in a major battle. And then again, you're talking about other ways to get resources. Obviously, you have resource nodes. If we go to a level 6 node here, right now it's at 1,008,000 food and wood, and then it goes down 756 for stone, and then 336 for gold. The problem is, I mean, this was lower when the game first came out, so they have increased it, and I think it was something in the neighborhood of like a 25% increase like they're doing now. So this is going to be an additional 25% increase from when the game first came out. But you have to understand, the game that first came out is not the game we're playing today. It's got the same name. Well, technically it's a different name too. It was Rise of Civilizations, now it's Rise of Kingdoms. It's a different game now than it was when we first started playing this thing 2-3 years ago. It's just not the same. You have Kingdom versus Kingdom now, KVK. You've got Ark of Osiris. You've got all these different changes into the game. You've got the crystal technology, which again doesn't really have much to do with the resources, but it's a totally different game. The main part I want to focus on from a type of game difference is the KVKs, which is your heavy resource spending event, happens more frequently now. You can technically go into KVK every 2 to 4 weeks and you're back in the game. And it's starting all over again. And these KVKs are getting, especially with Heroic Anthem and Strife of the Eight. Again, I don't have much feedback on March of the Ages, but you're fighting a lot from day one, and the resource intake that this game provides you hasn't exactly escalated with that escalated timeline for each KVK. So for instance, again, whenever this game first came out, level 6 resources were like 756,000, I believe, resources to whatever the top level was. I don't even know if there was a level 6. It might have been level 5. If I recall, but maybe it was level 6, but it was only 756,000 resources, not 1,008,000. So they did up it before, but in those times when they did that adjustment, KVK wasn't really a thing. Like, KVK was just starting to come around. They were starting to implement it because it took over a year for KVK to be implemented into this game. And I believe the changes to the resource nodes here, the resource deposits, were not adjusted according to KVK. They were just, when you're farming for leveling your account up, to get your city hall to level 25, to get your research academy to level 25, to get all your city buildings to level 25. Like, that was the reason you farmed. And of course there were, inside kingdom fighting and things like that, but it was usually fairly small scale. It usually didn't last very long. There were small skirmishes, a couple days here and there. You'd see the occasional 3 to 4 day civil war or something like that, but at the end it was over. It was over, and that was it. There was no additional things to spend your resources on other than leveling up all your stuff. And again, if you're looking at what you can farm, right, or what you can produce with your resource production facilities in your city, and then also, of course, barbarians, killing barbarians and NPC type units like the barbarian forts and things like that, you get resources that way too. So those mechanics were all in before KVK even started, like that, and the levels for those mechanics have not really changed in an upward direction since then. So the problem is that when you're talking about having KVK in general, right, resources were a problem on KVK 1. I guarantee, like, I remember KVK 1, it's like whenever Zone 5 opens up, I'm like, holy crap, where's all the resources at? Because you're doing so much fighting. If you're T5, which again, this game has been out long enough to where even the freest of free-to-play players are T5 players that have been playing for a long time, it's just not conducive. You can't farm enough to fight with T5 on your own at a high level. Like, you can do your general casual skirmishing, when the pass is open, you can fill your hospital a few times, and you can fill flags and rallies, and obviously that doesn't cost resources, but the troops do. The troops to make the cost to make those troops are resources, and you're spending those technically, but the resource availability coming into your account without extra farms isn't nearly enough to do any kind of substantial kingdom versus kingdom or fighting in general, really, past a couple days, and then you're done for the average player. Now, for the top tier players, and I'm not saying I'm the best of the best. This is like alt account only has 170 million kill points because I haven't really used it in a fight for quite some time, but my main account's got 3 billion kill points, and that's after October of 2019, I think, or whatever. There was another 3 or 4 billion before that. So I mean, it's one of those things where if you want to fight at that level and you want to be fighting the the players that have all these top tier commanders and top tier equipment and kingdoms that have a big amount of those types of players, if you're a casual free to play or even low spending player that's got T5 that's been playing for a while, you're just not going to be able to keep up resource wise unless you've got a ton of farms. And this latest patch was so infuriating because those players, they couldn't even transfer what they had. They were farming in all their 10 farms or whatever, because a lot of the free-to-play players in this game that are very active, they've got a lot of farms and they do produce quite a bit of resources. The idea would be to use those to share with people as well as stock their own account. They haven't adjusted the main fundamental problem of the game, and in my opinion, that is that the game cannot support the content that they're coming out from a resource perspective. If you're telling me that you're going to put me in a KVK with only a 2 to 3 to 4 week break, and that's if it's 2 weeks or 1 week and you don't skip. If you don't skip, you can be back in KVK. You're 80%, 90% uptime in KVK. You can have that if you want to. Whereas, again, most kingdoms have to wait a turn or two unless they had a really easy KVK before, because they need to migrate people in. They need to restock their resources from the previous KVK. That kind of thing. And it just takes all that time. And that's with having farms. Like, if you don't have farms, you just don't have the functionality to just farm what you need, farm, gather, and play the game from a barbarian standpoint efficiently enough. Even full uptime, full activity, you just don't have it. You don't have that income from a resource standpoint with the way the game is currently set up, because it wasn't set up for this type of game. It wasn't set up for being in KVK 80% of the time. It wasn't set up for having to go against players that have, I mean, the commanders that are out right now. You don't have that functionality, the counterattack damage and the Attilas out there and all the things that cause massive amounts of severely wounded troops. They weren't there when all of these resource mechanics were implemented into the game at the very beginning. So all these changes have happened from a commander, from an equipment, from a amount of army standpoint in KVK, and then all the buffs that go along with those events as well, like with KVK giving you the additional defense or the additional attack bonuses and all the different rally bonuses from the circles and from the, from everything, from the high runs, all those different bonuses, those translate into higher hospital bills. That's what that is. None of that was factored into the original part of the game, which was giving you 756 or upping it to 1 million food or wood resources from a single deposit node, and how long it takes to farm that, even with top gear, which again, we're not even talking gear. You're talking 3 hours, 2 hours to do a maximum level 6 node. And if you're in KVK with level 8, level 9 nodes, it's even longer. You do have gear to help accommodate that, but has there been any game-changing, mind-blowing commanders for gathering that have come out? Not that I'm aware of. I mean, you've got some legendary gathering commanders like Sundiak, and Cleo's been around since the beginning, but Ashida has come out. You've got, but there's no green or blue commanders that have come out since the beginning of the game to help you gather more efficiently. The time has just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And again, that leads people to try and find ways to get resources. And if we're talking reality here, right? We're talking reality. You've got the limited resource bundle here where you can buy, this is the $100 one. You can buy up to, what is that? 500,000 times 100. That's 50 million plus another 80%. That's 40 million. So 90 million food, 90 million wood. I mean, this is decent. If you multiply that by 4, you have 90 million times 4. That's 360 million food. That's not bad, but that's $100. The resource sellers that are out there, I get the advertisements for them every day. You're paying $65 for like 1 billion food and 1 billion wood. So the numbers just aren't there. They're not comparable. So that's the reason why this is such a problem, because there's such a need for resources to be stockpiled for fighters that actually fight for more than a couple days. The players that have invested into the game and gotten all these legendary commanders maxed out and top tier gear and are the leaders of their kingdom, they have to have resources to fight, or it's pointless. It's pointless to do. So what needs to happen? I guess, let's talk about kind of what are some fixes that we can do, or we can suggest to the development team because I think we can all agree we want to get rid of the third-party sellers. We want to get rid of them. That they're not part of the game. They're not. That's not what we're here for. We want to have the functionality in the game to be able to do what we want to in the game from a resource standpoint. We're not talking, I want 500 legendary gold sculptures. Well, of course everybody does. You got to pay for that kind of thing, right? You got to spin the wheel. You've got to buy the VIP shop if you want to really quickly stockpile those things. You got to do Kerouac every time it comes up. You got to do all those things. I'm talking base functionality, like it's food and shelter. These are the food and shelter kind of things. You need to have resources to do anything event-wise really in this game, with the exception of Arc, and even then you've got to build the troops to perform at a high level in Arc, which can be very costly as well, and that's part of the problem too. So what needs to be done? What are some suggestions that we can have as a community, that we can push forward to the team? I've done my own little, giving them some information and ideas on, just kind of generic offhand, but I want to have a nice little comment section below where you guys put forward a solid strategy to do two things. One, make everyone self-sufficient on the amount of resources they need without really having to buy. And then two, by that point, eliminating the third-party selling system, which is, again, the main point of why Lilith is doing these things. They want to get rid of that because they don't want to lose money. Now, I'm not saying everybody will, with this fix, right, everybody will have 4 billion resources of each. To get to that level, you need to do some buying. That's just the way it is. That's the nature of the game. You have to understand that. But just base functionality fighting, I mean, it takes 700 million resources, 500 million resources, 600 million resources to fill or to repair a full T5 hospital. You can't do that with the current setup without having people help you with your alliance and with your kingdom and buying packs and things like that. You have to. Otherwise, you just can't participate in the events, all these great events that the game is coming out with. I mean, people play this game specifically for KVK, and Arc obviously as well, but those are the two premier events, and KVK is the one that lasts the longest, and is the most intense resource-wise. So some things that I think I can suggest right off the bat that we can kind of get the conversation kicked off with is we need to improve how we acquire the resources. So, obviously the resource production here, this is so minimal. This is so minimal. I mean, if in a 30-day period, we just kind of calculated it. It's about 2 million food and wood. So if you put that into a 30-day period, that's 60 million food and wood. That is roughly 200,000 T5 troops being healed. One time. That's in a month. The stone, same thing. I think we calculated 1.5 million or so times 30. That's 45 million. Again, very, very small amount. And then gold, say it's 500 million or so. That's, times that by 30. Again, that's 150 million. That's still not enough to do anything there. So I mean, it's not nearly enough. I mean, you've got, I'm sorry, not 5 million, 500,000, which you times that by 30, that's 1.5 million gold, which gold is for T5. That is the lifeblood of T5, being on the field fighting and not sitting in your hospital, not being able to be healed because you don't have enough gold. Gold is a big deal. So what do we do to fix these? I think the resource production needs to get jacked up by a very large amount. I would say, I don't even want to put a number on it. It needs to be a lot higher than it is right now. I think you want to reward active players. So you want to reward the active players. And to me, the resource production, isn't necessarily so much for active players. You can maybe do a faster collection rate, so get to that 2 million mark on food and wood, but get to it every 2 hours, so that players that are online can collect that repeatedly, and that would increase, not necessarily increasing the overall amount that's produced, but increase the speed at which it's produced by a large amount, like 10, 15, 20 times, not percent, times, so that you can collect those resources more quickly, and that will in turn increase the amount of resources that you take in from your resource production items in the game. The other thing, again, of course, is we just talked about it on the patch note. They've increased by 25%. Let me I'll use gold as an example because this is really a big deal. 336,000. You increase it by 25%. That's roughly going to bring it to 420 or something. 420,000 roughly total, which again to me is just not enough, especially when. So let me try and gather this really quick, and it'll show you how much. This is with Joan, which is one of my top tier gathering commanders. You have a 25% increase. She's got full gathering tech. You've also got, that's basically it for that. But yeah. So, and then you've also got Sundiak here, which also has another 30% gold gathering speed increase as well. And there's a load bonus, I think, in here too, but that doesn't really help us much. Or maybe not. Either way, let's go ahead and send it, and let's see how long it takes to get if we end up with this new patch. If we end up with this new patch, we're going to have a 25% increase, so that's not going to be factored in to what we're doing. But just right now, the 25%, without the 25% increase, without the 10% gathering speed bonus, it's going to take me a minute to get there. But I think we need to adjust the resource nodes even more than what they're talking about doing. 25%. Can you tell me honestly, from the beginning of the game to now, that we've only increased our resource spending capability with all the events that are in the game by 25%? I don't think that's the case. I think these need to be at the level 9, level 10 numbers for level 6, and then go up exponentially from there when you're in KVK. You just got to do something different with these deposits. It's not enough to sustain an account that's actively fighting, because the only way to really get rid of, in my opinion, the only way to get rid of third-party resellers is to do one of two things. Allow players to be able to realistically farm the amount of resources that they would be purchasing from the third-party vendors to fight the way that they want to, okay? Give them the ability to do that if they're active enough, or what have you, okay? The second thing is to adjust the actual bundles. So the people that are doing the third-party vendor buying, they're spending money. And obviously the developers want that money to be coming to them, which is, again, smart business move. You don't want the money going away from you for things that are in your game. So it makes total sense. You've got the bumper harvest bundles here. I haven't done the math on exactly how much resources you get here, but it's nowhere close to the value that you're getting from the people that are sending me messages every day on all my accounts saying 65 bucks for a billion food, 65 bucks for a billion wood. I think it's like 80 bucks for stone, and 100 bucks, 115 bucks for a billion gold. So I mean, it's so cheap. You can buy 3 billion of each for 2 bundles worth of any of these bundles here, the super value bundle or the limited resource bundle, and you're getting 10 times the resources amount. It's just not equivalent. It's a different game. And so the second fix to me would be to bring these bundles, especially maybe even make it the limited resource bundle. Like, you don't have to make it the daily one where you can buy it every day and have 20 billion of each resource in a week, but make it the limited resource bundle where you buy the $100 pack 3 times, and that gives you enough to at least survive through at least a pass or two in the Heroic Anthem or the Strife of the 8 KBKs, because you can't do it on, if you're a fighter, if you're a proper fighter and your kingdom expects you to fight on the front lines for an extended period of time, which I do for any fighter in my kingdom and myself even, I expect, you know, every single phase of the fighting portion of the KVKs, which are many phases. There are many phases in these KVKs that you're expected to fight for long periods of time. You can't do it on 700 million of each resource, or even say it's a billion. Even say it's a billion of each resource. That's not enough. That's not enough for a fighter that's going to be on the front line for more than 5 hours, 4 hours. That's not very long to fight whenever the resource cost, and maybe this is the third part of it that we do need to talk about, is the actual resource cost that it takes to repair troops, to heal troops. It's exorbitant. It's exorbitant. It's hundreds of millions of resources for a full hospital. And you get a full hospital pretty damn quick, especially with, you know, I don't know, maybe some of the lag in the game where if it's a big KVK and it's jumping your troops all around, or if you get booted out of the game, next thing you know, you got a full hospital because you got 5 or 6 marches on the field, and they went inside of another kingdom's murder ball, and they all got decimated, and now you got 400,000 troops in the bank, and that's, you know, 500 million resources to heal for nothing. It's like they weren't even there. For 500 million resources, that's a costly mistake that you didn't even do. So I mean, that may be the third phase of this, that increase the ability for people to gather and produce with their producing buildings inside their city, and maybe increase the barbarian and barbarian fort output of resource cards as well. Phase 1. Phase 2, again, reduce the cost or increase the value, I guess I would say. You don't have to reduce the cost, but increase the value of how many resources you get from those bundles. And again, maybe, and I think they kind of started toying around with this with the bumper harvest versus the resource reserve bundles. You just need to take it a step further. You need to take it a step further. It's just not close enough. There's players getting a billion of each resource for like $200, $250, and it's $385. And that's 4 billion resources total, and it's $385 to get maybe, you know, 1 billion or 800 million total resources with the traditional bundles that you can buy in the game. So that's phase 2. They need to align those more with the people that are selling it, because at the end of the day too, I mean, the people that are selling this stuff, right? It's not just free income. They're I'm assuming they're doing some kind of farming. They're maintaining these things. They're sending the things out. They're doing the transfers. They're doing all that stuff, right? It takes time. They're not going to want to lowball it so much that they're making $50 for 4 billion resources, right? They're not going to want to do that. It's not going to be valuable enough. They're going to have to sell 10 times the amount to make what they're making now. So I think an adjustment on the value of the bundles would be good. And then again, the third thing is lower the actual cost of healing T5. It's just so freaking expensive. It makes players like me, who have been fighting with T5 units for over 2 years, I'm considering just training T4, because it's just cheaper. It's just cheaper, and I spend thousands of dollars a month in this game to keep up with my accounts and to keep up with everything that I'm doing on all these accounts, and I still feel like I never have enough resources. I never have enough resources, and I'm spending thousands of dollars a month in the game. So that, to me, that's the biggest like kind of call to action there, is you have players who are spending thousands of dollars a month into the game, and they don't have enough resources to play the game they want to play. So I think that's the biggest thing. And I know this kind of turned into a long rant here, and it's not an aggressive rant. I'm not yelling and screaming and everything. I'm trying to be very productive here, because something needs to be changed, and you can tell based off of the conversation that we're getting from the development team that they want to address it. They want to address it. So let's, as a community, get ahead of this, give them some constructive feedback, realistic expectations to solve a problem for them and for us. The problem for them is they're not getting the money that they should be, because it's being sent to a third party outside the development team or the game developers. Okay. On us, we need an easier way to get, or a more quick way, or a more efficient way, or a more valuable way to get resources for our accounts without having to have this kind of thing pop up where a patch could completely devastate completely devastate your fighting capability because of a resource cap assistance or a plundering cap assistance. That's just not, that's going to devastate. That would devastate. And that's why they've pulled it back. They've started to get that feedback, and they've noticed that, hey, this is going to change not just the bot stuff, but also it's going to change just how the game is played mechanics wise, and we can't do that. So these three changes, in my opinion, these three phases, maybe there's a mix of all three that need to happen. Maybe it's one or two or one that needs to happen to fix the whole thing, but we need to be able to solve a problem for both sides. And we can all agree, I think, that there is a problem with third-party resellers. We shouldn't have that in the game. We want to be able to keep it equal, keep it fair. If you're very, very active into the game, you should be rewarded with being able to have enough resources to be able to fight the way that you want to fight. And if you're not active enough, you have the ability to buy the resources that you want to fight without having to spend $3,000 a month just on resources to fight. That's a lot of money just to be able to fight when you're already spending the other $3,000 to $5,000 a month to get the commanders that you need, to get the troops that you need, to get the city skins that you need, to get the equipment you need, to get all those other things that make this game fun. So I think that's a pretty good rundown. And again, it's meant to help people understand that from the beginning, the resources availability, the income of resources hasn't really changed that much since the beginning of the game. Whereas the cost to do business, the cost of doing business in a kingdom, the cost of fighting to fight basically has gone up drastically, because not only are we going up against higher tier, harder opponents, but we're also going up against them more frequently. So it's you're getting hit on both sides of it, and you're not getting any kind of way to make up for that. It's like inflation in real life, the way that works. Like you have $1, and you know, a year ago that dollar stretched out to getting you a full refrigerator. Well, now that dollar gets you 3 eggs and a slice of cheese. So that's kind of the way you need to look at this, because there's just not enough resources coming in to be able to offset the need that you're going to have as a fighting player in Rise of Kingdoms to fight for more than a certain amount of time with how much resources we currently have gathering in. So again, huge rant. Sorry for the length of it, but I wanted to talk about it. So I hope you guys can kind of throw in the comment section below if there's any suggestions that you have that I have not kind of pitched here. I know there's some off the wall stuff and some crazy things here and there that people have kind of come up with. Feel free to throw it in the comment section below. Again, I am a sponsored content creator for Rise of Kingdoms, so this is a hard conversation for me to have because I'm sponsored by them. I want to make sure that we're putting out content that is fun for you to watch and entertaining from a Rise of Kingdoms perspective, but this is a core critical need that needs to be addressed, and you can tell the development team wants to address it. We just need to help them address it properly. So let's do that together. Throw it in the comment section below, your ideas. Throw a like button, throw a like on the video, and hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Looking forward to seeing you guys in future videos. I'll see you guys later. Cheers. Have a good one, and take care.